My name is David Winnie, and this is Empowerment What's the Score? Today's guest is Jack Clifford, former number 8 for Harlequins and England. Jack, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, really nice to be on the podcast.
My pleasure. We'll start right at the beginning. It's quite an unusual, I have to say, it's not the normal upbringing you've had, because I think your dad's Kenyan, your mother's English. You were born in Brisbane. Mm-hmm. How did it go from there? I mean, did you stay in Australia, or what happened?
No, I did a little bit, not too long. Unfortunately, I got my mum, obviously being English, dragged kind of all of us back, and could have had a nice life in Brisbane on the beach instead. I was going to say, sunny old England out in the countryside in Guildford. So no, that's where I grew up round here. So it's slightly different. My parents have they live back in Nairobi now. So,
oh, right, okay.
So yeah, they live back over there. So yeah, it's a slightly different one. But like you said, there's potential to have played for all 3 different countries.
Yeah, you could have.
So I could have.
Is there any sporting background with your dad or your mum or anything like that?
No. My old man he boxed a bit in university, but no, not overly. And no, my mum, no, not particularly sporty at all.
All right, okay.
So yeah, no, it's slightly out of the blue, really, but it's just one of those.
So I take it you played rugby at school. Mm-hmm. You've shown this talent quite clearly. And it's gone from there. You didn't start at Harlequins, did you? Was it Asia you started at?
So I started. I was always at Quins,
right?
But I didn't actually play rugby until I was about 12. Played football before then.
All right, okay.
So I played football all the way through there, and then when I went to secondary school, started playing rugby. When I was 14, I started at Quins Academy. So it's first, and it's not really. It's a school of rugby kind of.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But there was 5 of us brought into the academy, of which in the ended up, I think 3 of us got contracts. So it was the scouting kind of were decent then.
Yep.
And then when I first signed my professional contract, I then was on loan at Esher and Ealing. So between my first 2 years, but I started playing first team games when I was about 19. I think 19 was my first senior match for Quins. So yeah, it was one of those. I started quite early, but I enjoyed it from the off.
But you said you started early, which you did, but it was quite a meteoric rise, wasn't it? I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, you played for England at under 18, under 20, won the World Cup or the World Championship, and it's gone from there, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those. I mean, to be fair, I didn't even think I was going to carry on playing professional rugby. I had a place at Loughborough to study economics,
right.
And I deferred that by a year or 2 years, right. Thinking that I'll take this first contract as a kind of a gap 2 years and see how it goes. And it was after we won the World Cup that I was like, okay, I can make a career of this.
And you were the captain of the team as well, weren't you?
Yeah, it was my second one. First one was in South Africa, which in all honesty we probably should have won. The guys we had in that team were, British and Irish Lions. They were an amazing squad. I mean, not to take anything away from the guys we had in the year after, but there was a really good team. We kind of fell away. Few mistakes here and there, and we ended up actually coming 7th, so it was pretty embarrassing. And then year after, I was captain, and we kind of learnt a lot from those mistakes, and we ended up winning it, which was amazing. And then after that, like you said, it kind of all started kind of really snowballing, and I mean that was 20. Yeah, I was 20 when that happened. Yeah. I got my first senior cap when I was 22. So started playing for England then. I just missed out on the 2015 World Cup. So yeah, it kind of peaks and troughs, but it was a very quick rise from there to then.
Would you say it was some, in professional sport, particularly in team games, they have to really work hard, strive for everything? Was that your case, or was it something, it just comes naturally to me? What got you going with it? You know, I thought I can really play here, or I had to work my backside
I
off.
always worked hard, and I knew that was the case. At the same time, I was always quite switched on with knowing where to put myself, reading a game quite easily.
Right.
So that side of it meant that, I mean, an example, we were just speaking about someone, Nick Easter, who was, he was my kind of mentor at Quins, and pretty much for the first 2 years, when I broke into the team, I just knew where of he would be, positioned myself around him, so everyone else would try and tackle him, and he could offload to me.
Right.
And that's why I ended up scoring so many tries because of him. And it was just game understanding, game knowledge. At the same time, I wouldn't say it was just that. You then have to kind of be able to repeat it and do well. So it was always tough, and it was always worked hard. But at the same time, I'd say my game knowledge probably did help me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were an intelligent player.
I'm not going to blow my own horn too much, but I'd say that it did help me.
Yeah.
Being able to, I mean, especially when it comes to rugby, you've got some guys who are just brute strength, and you've got other guys who are. You look at the Marcus Smith now, his rise from where he's been. Yes, he is a talent, but his game knowledge and game understanding. You look at someone who is, in all honesty, when it comes to professional rugby, he should be too small. Mm-hmm. His ability and knowledge and married all in together with his work ethic puts him head and shoulders above everyone else.
You've got this. You've had this meteoric rise, and I read somewhere that your proudest moment was at Murrayfield, standing there.
That was.
Remember you're talking to Scotsman here. You're at Murrayfield, and was it your first game?
That was my first cap for England. It's a hell of an anthem. I'm not going to lie. And no. It really is. And then that first cap and it was our first game for England with Eddie Jones. So,
right, okay.
So it was kind of a culmination of all of that. So it was quite something. So
what was the score, by the way?
We won. We won.
Right, okay.
And that's again one of my little trivia. I never lost a game for England.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's 10 from 10.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was. I think it could be one of the longest, if not the longest, winning streak.
Right.
Or up there. I don't know. My mate told me once in a pub quiz thing. It came up. It was quite funny, but yeah. No, it's.
Was your family? Would they follow you wherever?
Yeah.
You, right. Okay.
Oh, my mum and dad used it as a holiday wherever we could go.
Right.
I mean, I was playing sevens in Hong Kong with England.
Right.
And I got a text being like, "Oh, we're here," and I was like, "Oh."
Well, sometimes they wouldn't even tell you.
They just turn up. Well, obviously, because they were always all over the world. So they just turned up sometimes. Oh yeah, we just flew over for a little bit, came, said, watch the games.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But no, it's they loved it, and they kind of it was always amazing being able to go places with them after. I know it's a bit of a usual cliche with athletes being like, my parents helped, but it's so true. That's why it is the case. It's the fact my mum and dad took me everywhere when I was a kid. Took me to all these training sessions, everything. Always sat in the car, waited. So the fact that we can then go to Murrayfield and I can sing the national anthem with them, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. I suppose you're playing for your national team. You're winning. You were 22, 23 at that point?
That was 22, just turned 23. Yeah.
Right. So the world, in a rugby sense, is literally at your feet. This is you've arrived. You're not.
Yeah.
You're there now. And then, bang.
Yeah. Injuries. Yeah. I'd always been fairly susceptible to injuries. That's actually how I got my contract at Quins, which is a bizarre concept. But
okay. Yeah.
So when I was
because you were injured.
Yeah, my coach said to me, "I gave you a contract because you got injured," and I was like, I got him. He explained it to me. I was 16.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be playing for England under 16s. Dislocated and I subluxed my knee, ripped a bit of cartilage in it. But afterwards, I rehabbed every day at the club. I was pestering the physios. I was made sure I was training, and he went, if you're 16 and you're going to do that, you show the diligence and work that we want. So I know that that's already instilled in you.
Yeah.
So we haven't got to, and he said that's one of the hardest things to find in an athlete, is the desire and the want to get better, to do better. Mm-hmm. So he was like, as soon as you did that, you rehab for 3 months, I knew you were going to sign you for a contract. I was like, fair enough. Like most people, you obviously have to have a backing behind it. You can't have hands like feet and then just be good at rehabbing. But at the same time, that showed that there was that side of me personally. And he was like, that's why I gave you a contract.
Did Rob Jones speak to you about this in terms of, or the selectors say to you about the injury situation, or is it just a matter of, for you, I just need to manage this?
No, they just, that was the worst. That was kind of the worst side of all the injuries. It was never one that kept on repeating. Mm-hmm. It was always something new.
All right, okay.
So I dislocated my shoulder, which we had then got repaired. I then did that one again, unfortunately. Came back from that, was fully fit, got back in the England squad, tore my hamstring off the bone. I then got back fit. Then when my ankle went, then got back fit. Then my other shoulder went. And it was always a part of my body. So it was never like a one weakness. Yeah. It was always just, and that's the problem. It comes down to genuinely the sport, I think. Rugby was such an attritional sport, and I knew to get picked for England, I had to put my body on the line because every other player was. Mm-hmm. So you really have to put yourself in those compromising positions. I was unlucky. And honestly, everyone kind of asked me these things, how, what, where. It was all down to luck. Just my ankle, for example, was someone fell on the other side of me, which trapped it as someone hit me over the top. Yeah, that was it. It's not I didn't rehab something, or I didn't do enough of one exercise or look after myself. It was all of it was sheer luck. Not one injury was an impact one.
I'm listening to you here, and I'm thinking with each injury you're getting, mm-hmm. mentally there must be something inside you saying, oh no, not another one. What's empowering you? What's keeping you going here? Because with each one you're thinking, I'm getting hit again. I'm going down here again.
To be fair, I was very good at compartmentalising everything, right. And I always found the first week before my surgery was the worst. That was because it was always a surgery. Whenever I had an injury, pretty much they were always big. Yeah. So I went to see the surgeon. I'd do the injury on the Saturday. I'd see the surgeon on the Tuesday, and I'd have the op on the Friday. Right. That Saturday to Friday was always awful. Hated it. But as soon as I had the surgery,
was it because of the unknown factor?
No, because I knew I wasn't getting better. As soon as I had the surgery, every day was getting better. Right. So it never mattered. I was always going to get better. I was always getting closer back to playing. To be fair, the last injury was my 100th cap, and I dislocated for Quins, and I dislocated my shoulder, and I lay on the floor and kind of got taken off. And that was the one I was just like, you know what? I don't think I can do this anymore. And that was the one. To be fair, it did retire me, but then mentally I was just like, and maybe it's divine intervention. I don't know, but I kind of sat there as I came off. All the other ones I showed a load of emotion. I was in tears, like really upset. Then had the kind of drive. I was like, I'm going to get back. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. This one, I literally just walked off. It was empty. Nothing. I didn't show any emotion. Nothing. Just like.
Did you know then? Something inside you said.
I think probably something inside me. Yeah. And then, so I had the surgery. 2-3 weeks later, I went and I had another scan and stuff, and they were like, well, the surgery's had completely failed. So I had 4 bolts put in my shoulder, 3 of them had snapped. And I hadn't done anything. It was just one got embedded in a nerve, and it was just physio. I was having physio, having my rehab, and it all just failed. Like I said, it's one of those where I don't actually know what the case was or how it happened, but like I said, divine intervention, who knows? But
so I can only relate it to myself. You know, I'd be thinking, I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's it. What age were you when you?
I was 26 when I had this injury. I'm retired at 27.
And you had your first cap. You know, you played at Murrayfield when you were 22, so like 4 years, give or take, later.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
like I said, peaks and troughs. Yeah, it was.
It's 1 minute you're up there.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. So you go up there, then you're back down after an injury. Then I got back playing, got back into the England squad. Injury, back down here, and that was the thing. That's what I knew about. Kind of every time I got injured was I had a challenge to get back. And when I had my last one, and it's kind of the surgery failed, and the surgeon was like, "Look, I don't think you'll ever play again." And also at the same time, where I wanted to play, which was I never wanted to go back and just be a squad player. I couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Like mentally, if I tried to drag it out to 33, 34, playing down the leagues, and I was just like, I couldn't do it. Because whenever I was playing, I had to be up there. It was always a challenge, always the best, always this. And I was like, well, if I can't do that, there's no point playing. I can't do it.
Did you ever get really, really down about the whole thing?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
And I'm very open. I saw people. I actually had a really poor example with one sports psychologist. I don't even know. I saw a doctor about it.
Yeah.
Within 10 minutes, tried to put me on antidepressants.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I said no. It's just like, look, I kind of explained the situation I was in. And he was like, "You're being you sound very depressed." I went, "No, I'm listing kind of where I'm at and being like I said, always very pragmatic about it."
Yeah. And
he went, "Oh, you need to take these." I said no. I went back to see someone else, and he went, "Here you go. These are what you need. Antidepressants.
Take them."
So, yeah. I to be fair, I went. I tried one. I said, "Look, well, he's a doctor. He's done 10 years in medical student. Maybe he does know what he's talking about." I was like, I will never, instantly threw them in all in the bin. Was like that afternoon. I was like, I'm never taking those again. And they do help people, but for me personally, because I wasn't in that state, I didn't need them.
See, that's what I was going to ask you. I know personally, from my own career in football, when it finally ends, whether it's longevity or just an injury, you're hit with the reality, and it is a hard reality, and you either deal with it or you don't. And there's so many players I've come across, and they do think about, I can't deal with this. How do I end it all?
Exactly. There's a lot of that but I guess because I have been very pragmatic about it, and I knew that rugby, and to be fair, every time I had an injury, I realised how fragile rugby was, or the career was, and how it can all be taken very quickly. So I'm always going to need another job. I'm going to need a life afterwards.
So was that kind of these injury after injury? Was it almost mentally preparing you for life after?
I think so, and also I'd say, chatting about doing these things. I think if it had just been one catastrophic injury, and that was it, I think it would have been a lot harder to take.
I can imagine.
It's almost just like beat me down a bit, but not in a good way, because it's a really twisted way to think about things. But it did make it probably easier. The fact it went.
The last one.
I had 7 operations. It was the last one. I was like, actually, I want to be able to play football with my kids, run around, if I have my daughter or son, I want to be able to pick them up and not. Worry about kind of my arms falling off. So,
and I think from where you're coming from, Jack, because you scaled the very peaks of profession. You know, you weren't just like a middling and average player. You've played for your national team, and you're falling off it again. So it's falling down Everest every time, and I need to climb back up it.
That was the thing. I always wanted to strive to go back up there, but I think it's the fact that, like you said, it was a few injuries that got me that I had to finish on, and the fact that I hit 100 caps for Quins. I I played for my country, won 2 Six Nations, a Grand Slam, went on tour with Australia, won down there. I was like, I hit a lot to be very proud of, which I can walk away from and go, yeah, I've done well. I can now start something else, because I always knew I had to start something else.
Yep.
So I think that does make it easier. I think if I'd been, I don't know, in the England squad and never played, I probably have a lot of kind of harbour a lot more resentment, or just looking at it being like, oh, what if I never got there, but I did. So I think all of these bits do make it easier.
I know we spoke about it just before we started here, and the issues now arising for rugby players, or those that have finished with injury, with dementia, head knocks, it's now coming to the fore, and now there's legal issues. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's definitely something I worry. Me and a lot of guys I speak to now who are still very close. It's definitely something you worry about. And every new person that comes out with it, you always get a message being like, "Seen that?" Everyone's does worry. And I mean, again, talking to my wife about it, I think almost. I mean, I had 5 I had 5 big concussions.
Right. I think that's. The rugby people I've spoken to, it's almost a given.
Yeah. No, it really is. And I had 5 pretty big ones, and like ones I was worried about.
Right. Did you brain scans or anything like that?
Yeah, I had brain scans. I went. I actually had some. I took some time off rugby because I had 3 within a short space of time, and that's why. To be fair, that all the shoulder started, because I actually had a problem with my shoulder, so I thought, well, I'm going to take some time off of my head. Right. I'm going to sort my shoulder out, and then it kind of all of these things. But at the same time, I think the fact that I had these long periods of standing down with injuries, I'm not going to lie, have probably saved me, because it's not the big concussions. Don't get me wrong, they are a worry. Yeah. It's the sub ones, the little ones in a game where you don't. And as bad as it sounds, I know I did it. Rugby players are a danger to themselves, because you don't want to go off. Yeah. You think you can carry on. We really are. And I mean, I know I was guilty of it, and I have spoken to other players who, again, will admit to being guilty of maybe not putting themselves first. And I mean, I look at every time I see a new person come out, I'm like,
it's like it's an internal time bomb waiting to explode
completely,
and it'll explode
later on. And I'm doing as much as I can to kind of look after myself now, stay healthy, keep training. So I don't know if that's going to make any difference. Yeah. Are you
involved I think you're involved in a charity, aren't you?
Yeah. Right. I mean, a few, but then the one where that's cardiac risk in the young, so it's one that I do a fair bit for. But it's just things like I want to just keep myself busy. I mean, I was talking earlier with Mike Brown at the weekend. Kind of obviously Ed Slater's recently come out with suffering from M&D, and he was saying, we should probably try and do something. And we just at work, so I work at Gallagher, and we just did a charity bike ride for Wooden Spoon. We did it from every Premiership rugby club, so it was about 750 miles over 7 days.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's not.
I was going to say I'm saying fantastic.
It was horrific, but so I told Brownie, I said, look, if we're going to have to do something, it's going to have to be. He was like, we'll climb something. I went, we're going to have to do something pretty horrific to because that's the only way to raise money. And it seems with charity events now, you've got to go and put yourself out there, and you see guys, I don't know, rowing the Atlantic, or like running around, or someone swam around the whole of the UK, things like that. And I don't think Brownie knew. Like, it's pretty hard. Like,
you said, was it 750 miles? You said.
Yeah.
Tell me you didn't get injured.
Honestly, so I didn't.
Tell me.
I've never really cycled before. My boss lent me a bike, The one thing I'm actually struggling with is my hands from the vibrations and
all right, okay,
and because I've had a few shoulder surgeries,
all these bolts, etc.
Yeah, it's a bit of nerve issues in my hands, and to be fair, they're getting better now, but it's 4 weeks and I've only just I couldn't use a knife and fork for a little bit. So honestly,
right, okay.
but like you have to go whenever you do these charity things. You have to do something that's pretty horrible because it does. And we did it, and it was for Wooden Spoon help kind of young kids get into vulnerable situations, getting into sport and helping them out. Does make it a lot easier when you have someone kind of sitting there saying you doing this has helped this person. So I'm going to talk to Brownie about it, and I'm going to talk to a few people, and I think there's going to be a lot more guys who are going to suffer because of rugby and because of the things I don't know, but if it is related to sport, to rugby, I couldn't pass comment on that. But the head not one, guys like that. So I think there'll be a load more guys coming out with charity endeavours, which I'm probably going to have to jump in and get involved in.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying there you're now post rugby, you're now working for Gallagher's. Are you still involved in sport and helping, rugby players, football players, whatever, through your work?
Yeah. No, to be fair, that's the side of work that's actually my slightly more philanthropic bit, which I really enjoy. Is because I had a career-ending injury, I now help all the guys who are, obviously we're an insurance firm, anyone who's going through a career-ending injury who is claiming.
And you can relate to them.
Exactly.
If anyone
exactly. My boss hired me in as a, in his nice, kind words, he hired me in as a walking advert for career-ending insurance, which I am. And I liked, it's great to sit on the other side of it when you can help someone out. And it's a terrible time, like you're saying, kind of, athletes who have gone through it, and it's going into the unknown, and you leave a job that you love and have worked your whole life for, and then you don't know what you want to do. And normally when it's a conversation that we're having with a player, they're younger, or it's an unexpected retirement. I haven't been able to prepare for it as much. So if there's any way I can help on our side, I jump in, I get involved. I've had a few phone calls this week with different players around the different clubs around the country, and just kind of going in. I'm going to hopefully over this pre-season go in, speak to players, speak to kind of the team managers, and just see kind of if there's any way we as a company can help, get involved. If there's just intros we can make, just it's one of those. It's a small community, rugby, and everyone wants to look after each other when it comes to it.
Jack, well, the theme of my podcast is empowerment, and given the injuries you've had in your career, and they have been some mighty, mighty injuries, and head knocks, etc. So you've had to come back time and time and time again. There has to have been something here empowering you. Can you elaborate on it? It's hard to say, because probably the thing that made me come back is I've worked so hard to get to where I was in the first place, to get there, to be, and every time it was, I deserve to be here. I've worked hard enough. Like, I'm not giving up here. Yeah.
I'm not. Let's say one of my first injuries was, I think it might have been my ankle. When it all started unraveling a little bit, was I dislocated and fractured my ankle, and I was like, again, could have easily finished me. I didn't let it, and that was a side. I then came back, got back into the England squad, and then my shoulder went, and then. So like you said, it's all peaks and troughs, but I didn't want to let it almost be me that finished it. I couldn't. So when the surgeon said, "Look, mate, you're going to have to retire," I had one tell me before on my hamstring repair. So one of the bolts slightly slipped out. So I only have 60% of my tendon attached, I think. But he hadn't really been. So he did the operation on it, and then the head physio at Quins, who again wasn't really taking my rehab called me and we had a chat, and he went, look, I'm slightly worried about this. I think this could be a potential career. And I went, nah. So I called the physio that been looking after me and went, no, mate, I'm not retiring. This is fine. And he went, I don't think so either, but we need to get it all checked out and make sure. So I already had someone tell me that I had to retire and I'd come back, and I was like, no, I'm not. I got back into playing for England then and back playing for Quins. So all of these things was, I never wanted it to be me. I want to pull the pin on it, and I always wanted to kind of get back. And well, pretty much it was always prove people wrong.
I was going to say, do you think it's a combination of A, determination, B, stubbornness, and C, just downright pig-headedness?
I think it's, if you ask that question to my wife,
I was going to say,
yeah, I think she would say it's a nice combination of all three. But yeah, I think it was. And the last one, which did finish me, was the surgeon pretty much just sat in the room and went, you can't play again.
Yeah, the show's over.
You should, yeah. And there's only so many times you can go back and really and say no and do this. He was like, look, you can't. We had a few chats about it, and he was like, no, come on now. So, and I think that was probably what
you knew when it was time for the curtain to come down.
Exactly. On the show. That was it. It happened. It was there, and I was like, you know what? Like you said, the show is over now. It's been great, but you've got to really think about yourself here.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I think your career now post-rugby is well and truly on the way, and injuries aside, I was going to say touch wood, I think it's going from success to success. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and good luck in your endeavours.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on.